In a quiet Arizona suburb, where life moved at its own pace, a small act of independence turned into something far more profound. Elena, a retired school principal, had just recovered from wrist surgery and was eager to reclaim a sense of normalcy. But what started as a simple trip to the gas station soon escalated into an unforgettable confrontation with an entitled HOA president. This story isn't just about justice. It's about the power of accountability, community, and the quiet strength of standing up for what's right. Stick around to see how a single act of defiance brought a world of change. In the quiet suburban town of Clearwater, Arizona, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else, and the rhythm of daily life was slow and steady, I found myself driving with my mother, Elena. She was 74, a retired school principal, and had recently undergone wrist surgery after weeks of recovery. She was finally eager to reclaim a small piece of her independence. It wasn't much, just the simple act of pumping her own gas. But to her, it was monumental. A gesture that reminded her she was still capable, still in control. I stayed behind the wheel of our old sedan while Elena went to the pump. I thought about getting her a bottle of water inside the station. I figured it would only take a minute. Little did I know, this moment would mark the beginning of a chain of events that would forever change everything. When I returned to the pump, I could already sense something was off. The car in front of us was stationary, and Elena's face, usually warm and patient, was flushed with frustration. Standing next to her, I saw her Lindsay Monroe, the notorious president of the Sierra Crest Estates Homeowners Association, a woman who had once been on the school board, but had long since traded her modest reputation for a penchant for power. She was dressed in an immaculate white dress, her platinum blonde bob perfectly styled, and she was filming herself. At first, I assumed it was an innocent misunderstanding, but as I stepped closer, I realized something much worse was happening. Lindsay wasn't just filming herself. She was mocking my mother, recording her actions as if it were a game. But what shocked me even more was what came next. Lindsay, in an exaggerated flourish, swung the gas pump violently, striking Elena's injured wrist. A sickening crack echoed in the air, followed by Elena's gasp of pain. Lindsay laughed. "You're all just a bunch of elderly frauds," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Always playing the victim." For a moment, everything went silent. I froze. My eyes locked on the scene unfolding before me. My blood boiled. But I wasn't going to let Lindsay get away with this. Not this time. Not after all the small, petty ways she had tormented the neighborhood, flaunting her power as HOA president. This was different. I took a deep breath, forced myself to remain calm, and walked toward them. The crowd that had gathered around the pump, some simply trying to get their gas, others drawn in by the spectacle, started to murmur. Lindsay turned to face me, the smirk on her face only deepening when she saw my expression. "What's the matter?" she sneered. "Does it hurt to watch your mother act so helpless?" I had to bite my tongue, but only for a moment. The calm that had settled over me now exploded with a fury I had been holding inside for years. I stepped forward, my voice steady, but firm. "Listen, Lindsay, what you just did wasn't a joke. You hurt my mother, and now you're going to answer for it." Lindsay's face twisted in mock surprise, but before she could speak, I reminded her of something she didn't expect. I wasn't just a local resident. I wasn't just some helpless bystander. I was Daniel Reyes, senior agent with the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. The effect was immediate. Lindsay's posture stiffened, and I could see the color drain from her face as I pulled out my badge. The laughter from the onlookers turned into murmurs of disbelief. I turned to the nearby officer, who had been watching the whole exchange, and flashed my credentials. Lindsay, who had been acting so confident just moments before, now faltered. She was no longer the untouchable HOA president. She was just another person, guilty of her own actions. The officer, who had been calm up until that moment, now had a much different tone. "Ma'am, I suggest you step out of the car," he said. "We're going to need to talk." Lindsay, realizing the jig was up, attempted to play her trump card. "I wasn't the one who started this," she cried. "I was attacked. He assaulted me. I couldn't help but laugh." "You're really going to lie about this, Lindsay?" "But I didn't have to fight. I didn't have to get physical." The video that Lindsay had been so eager to create, thinking she could destroy my mother's dignity, was now turning into her downfall. People pulled out their phones, recording the entire exchange. One person even narrated it like a documentary. The hashtag #KarenCallides began trending in real time. And just like that, Lindsay's carefully constructed world began to unravel. The officer arrested Lindsay right then and there. It was a swift process. The charges piled up: assault on a senior citizen, false reporting, public misconduct. I could feel the weight of justice being handed down. And in that moment, I realized how important this was, not just for my mother, but for everyone who had ever suffered under Lindsay's reign. But the arrest was just the beginning. As soon as Lindsay was taken away in the police cruiser, I forwarded the footage to the City Ethics Board and the State Attorney's Office. They didn't need much to get started. Lindsay had been the subject of multiple complaints in the past, but this was the final nail in her coffin. It wasn't just that she had been cruel. It wasn't just that she had abused her position of power. It was that she had been corrupt. An investigation uncovered over $120,000 in misused HOA funds, falsified citations, illegal fines, and forged signatures used to remove people from the HOA board who dared to question her. Everything she had touched, it seemed, was tainted. And now, the truth was out. Within a week, Lindsay was removed from her position as HOA president. A month later, she was indicted for embezzlement and elder abuse. The mansion she had once paraded around in was put up for auction, and the luxury SUV she had driven with such arrogance was repossessed. But the most poetic part of the entire process, her LinkedIn account, once filled with self-congratulatory posts about her leadership and community service, was deleted. Lindsay was a pariah. But the real justice, the part that couldn't be captured by a camera, came 3 months later. I took my mother to the grocery store one quiet afternoon. She was still recovering, but her spirit was stronger than ever. As I helped her out of the car, we walked toward the entrance when something caught our eye. There, crouched next to a car, was Lindsay Monroe. Her white dress was gone. Instead, she was dressed in a gas station uniform, scrubbing the windshield of a car, her hands moving feverishly as if she could scrub away the mistakes of her past. For a long moment, we stood there, watching her. Elena didn't say anything. She didn't gloat. She didn't point and laugh. She simply looked at Lindsay and nodded softly, as though acknowledging that Lindsay had finally been forced to confront her own actions. Because justice, true justice, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. As we walked past, I turned to my mother and smiled. "Some things, Mom, are best left to fate." Elena didn't reply, but her smile said it all. And so, Lindsay Monroe, once the powerful HOA president, faded into the background. Her empire crumbled. Her past mistakes, her arrogance, her cruelty, all of it was washed away by time and a little thing called accountability. And for once, in the quiet of a grocery store parking lot, we all knew that justice had been served.